I'm now with Chris Rabbets on the Historic Marathon Rally Group stand. Hello Chris, and welcome to the Classic Restoration Show 2019.
Good afternoon, welcome to our stand.
Could you give me a little bit of a history on this car, please?
The car is a tribute car built by Bob Eaves' son. His father was a well-known rally driver in the north of the country. He came from Blackpool and he was an experienced competitor. He gained backing to build a car that was an ex-BMC recce car to take part in the London to Sydney Marathon in 1968. He did it with a crew of 3, and the car finished in 36th place, which for a privateer, although they were sponsored by the big cash and carry group, was a very good result. The fact that the car finished at all was a real tribute.
And what kind of car is it?
Now this car it's always listed as a BMC 1800. At the time, BMC were well into badge engineering and produced it under Wolseley, Austin and Morris badges. This particular car is an Austin 1800. But in the entry list for the event, it's just listed as a BMC 1800. The car still exists, the original car still exists, and it was on our stand at the NEC Classic Car Show last November. When Bob Eaves died, Bob Eaves Jr. wanted to build a tribute car to reflect all the achievements his father had got. So he bought a car and prepared it in exactly the same way as his father would have done for the London to Sydney event. The original car was also entered in the 1970 London to Mexico rally. There was a huge European loop, and unfortunately had a coming together with an HGV in Sofia and didn't get any further, so they didn't finish.
Came off worse.
It came off worse, unfortunately. Bob Jr. was so thorough when he built this car that he actually compiled a list of notes on the preparation, and most of the detail in the list of preparation was the same as Abingdon carried out in period when they built the cars new.
And it's got some quite novel little things on it, hasn't it? Such as the windscreen wiper which is on the top of the roof at the moment.
If the original windscreen wiper motor stopped for any reason, you couldn't do anything about it but change the motor, and that took time, and that might have been, the nearest service point might have been 500 miles away. So a lot of the crews put a spare wiper motor above the windscreen, which was on the Land Rover principle. It has an electric motor, so it can be electrically driven, but it also has a manual override. So if the electrics fail or the motor fails, it can be operated manually. And that was a really fail-safe sort of modification.
So what other things has it got which is unique to the car for such long rallies? Like the petrol tank, was that a larger size or?
It's a much larger tank with a big filler, so it can be filled very quickly. The range, they wanted a range of something like 500 to 800 miles, which meant carrying spare fuel in jerry cans as well as a much bigger standard fuel tank. The fuel pump was electric, that was doubled up. The engine was carefully prepared by Abingdon in the works cars and was based on the MGB engine, which was current in the MGB car of the same period. The body shell was one of the strongest body shells in production at the time, particularly as far as twist was concerned. Torsionally, it was very stiff. So it wanted some modifications around the suspension. They were all strengthened, and the hydroelastic system, which was current in production then, could be repressurized with a pump that was carried on the car.
But do you think this is the reason why these type of cars were used for these long rallies then?
No doubt about it. This and the Triumph 2.5 PI. The two-door Ford Cortina was a very popular car. because of course the marathon events, being marathon events, meant that most crews had a crew of 3 and not just 2. They were long stages. One of the primes in Argentina was almost 1,000 kilometers and was tackled non-stop, and the cars were driven flat out. Brian Colcheth on one of the primes averaged almost 90 miles an hour. So that was on unmade roads, map reading as you went, making things up and doing things as they went. So that sort of speed is really impressive.
Well, you're going a lot faster than that, are you? If you're averaging that, you're obviously going a lot faster.
Exactly, yes, that's the average speed. Yeah. So, you know, you would be going flat out all the time.
Well, thanks very much, Chris, for all the information on the car. It was, and thank you very much for the interview. And I hope the rest of the show goes well for you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you.